Well, it is quite a bizarre development because now we are learning who the pilots are, because they have been taken into custody by the Armed Forces of Malta personnel who have interrogated who have been identified as two senior colonels of the Libyan Air Force. Now, it was about 2 hours ago that two Mirage fighter jets belonging to the Libyan Air Force have landed without any authorization at the Malta International Airport. Initially, they asked to land as an emergency request because they were running out of fuel, and when they landed, they automatically surrendered themselves to the authorities who surrounded the aircraft. When they were taken into custody, because obviously they had no authorization to land and so they were regarded as illegal migrants, they identified themselves as senior colonels whose their names have not been released by the authorities so far, but they have confirmed that they have defected from Libya and come to Malta because they were ordered to bombard protesters in Benghazi, and they decided to quit the operation. What I can confirm now is that the two men who have now been, who are still in the custody of the armed forces, are saying that they were based in Tripoli, they flew to Benghazi, and when they were in Benghazi, they were ordered to take off and bombard. They lowered themselves to a height or an altitude of 500 feet, and when they saw their colleagues bombard the crowd in Benghazi, they decided to change their route and divert towards Malta. In the meantime, the news, which has also hit the headlines, has attracted the attention of a lot of Libyans who are residents in Malta and who have been protesting outside the Libyan embassy. They are all outside the airport and they are chanting slogans towards these officers and regarding them as heroes. The Malta airport, however, I am informed, is on a state of alert tonight, given the information the two Libyan officers have given to the Maltese authorities.
What a fascinating development. Carl, stay there while I recap for viewers watching at the moment these pictures which we've got, Carl, I don't know if you can see them, but of the jets landed in Malta. Carl telling us that these two jets were flown by senior colonels of the Libyan Air Force who had defected. They told the authorities upon landing, illegally, effectively they landed, that they had defected after being ordered to attack protesters in Benghazi. Instead of doing that, they went off course. They flew to Malta where they were not authorized to land. They still landed on the island, were detained and then admitted that they were, as we said, senior colonels of the Libyan Air Force who had defected. Carl, viewers might be wondering just now, and this is a very simple question, but why Malta?
Well, Malta's just 1 hour away from Libya by plane. It's the first land which is European soil from North Africa. And Malta and Libya have enjoyed good relations for the past years. And although there were ups and downs in the diplomatic relations, I think Malta was an obvious choice for the pilots. I'm not sure, and I wouldn't know what to say why they didn't choose Italy, given the fact that they have a peace treaty between them. And perhaps the agreement between the Berlusconi government and Gaddafi could have provided for them to be immediately repatriated back to Libya. And therefore, this is why they actually chose Malta.
Absolutely fascinating. Thank you for that. Carl Navarro is on the line from Malta there. And we're going to talk to Salman Sheikh about this as well, because you looked about as shocked as I did there, the fact that we've got, it seems, two senior colonels who have defected, told to attack Libyans in Benghazi, and they said no.
Is right. You recall we were actually speculating who's in those planes, and now we have had this confirmed about these two senior colonels. I think it's telling us two things. One, we're continuing to see disintegration of the regime and the elements around it which would support it. We're hearing that about the army, now with these particular Air Force jets, also of course on the diplomatic corps, and maybe perhaps what we'll hear from the UN shortly. Also, it tells us the reports that we were hearing, somewhat unsubstantiated, that aircraft were being used to target innocent civilians. Well, here is clear testimony telling us that that is exactly what these aircraft were being asked to do in Benghazi.
Yeah.
So the reports that we're also hearing about Tripoli also gives us some real pause for thought as to what's going on there.
How, and again, this is basic stuff, but I think it's worth going over this territory for our viewers, how important is the military? If I compare it to Egypt, and I know I've been doing a lot of that, but I think there are a lot of parallels to draw, we knew how important the military was there to the situation. How important is it here and to Gaddafi himself and the regime itself?
It is important. It's perhaps not as important as a player as in Egypt or in Algeria, for that matter. But of course, it is the instrument of potential coercion if Gaddafi uses. What is interesting is that not everybody is taking those orders, which is why he is also relying on mercenaries and perhaps other elements in which to suppress the protesters in Libya.
When you add it all together and you say things like well, we do know defections from the Air Force, mercenaries being brought in, all these elements, does it look to you like this regime is on its last legs, beginning of the end, starting to crumble, however you want to describe it?
Yes, I do. I think this regime is crumbling, and I probably believe that there's an ever smaller circle of people who are now representing the regime. In fact, you probably fit them all into one room now.
And it all happens so fast as well.
Yes.
In a part of the world where, let's face it, developments don't happen quickly. If you know, Israel-Palestine for 60 years, nothing's really moved there. And then it happens in a matter of days. How is it that it happens so fast?
It's the nature of the regimes. They don't enjoy legitimacy, and when you have the power of people shedding their fears and challenging them, you start to see the fragility that is under them.
So these regimes were always like this, effectively, but they just had the control. They had enough control to keep the people down.
Well, this is what history is teaching us right now.
Absolutely fascinating stuff, isn't it? These pictures, just for anyone wondering, Benghazi, I believe, from earlier in the day. Benghazi was the real epicenter of things in Libya, though, as we've been saying with Salman, we've been focusing a lot more on Tripoli because of events there. But these pictures still telling the story of what's happening in Benghazi, where it all started and where it continues, and where it could have gotten a lot worse. As we heard, fighter jets given the order to attack protesters in Benghazi. And at least in 2 instances, it didn't happen because those 2 jets defected, the senior colonels on board defected. And this is where they landed up, Malta. 2 jets just touching down in Malta, pretty much unannounced. On board were 2 senior colonels on the Libyan Air Force who said, we have defected, we were given orders to bombard protesters in Benghazi, and we didn't. More on Libya to come, of course, but right now, some more news of the day. And we start with news of Afghanistan, where a suicide bomb blast in the north has killed at least 26 people. They were queuing for ID cards at a population registration office when the bomber detonated explosives. Another 36 people wounded in Kunduz province. Also got a drone strike in Pakistan's western tribal region. That's killed at least 7 people. Intelligence officials say at least 4 missiles were fired from unmanned US aircraft. They apparently targeted a training center believed to be used by fighters in South Waziristan. It is the first report of a drone attack in that area for about a month. Somalia now, where al-Shabaab fighters are claiming responsibility for a car bomb, which killed at least 8 people. More fatalities are expected after the suicide attack near a training station for government troops in the capital